So if you're looking for nonprofit accounting, Christina, Complete Balance, why don't you help us understand how you help nonprofits as an accountant and CPA?
Yep. So like Rob mentioned, I'm a CPA. I have 15 years of accounting experience, and I started my own firm to kind of fill in the gap between bookkeeper, basic bookkeeper, and huge accounting firm or in-house accounting staff. So we provide bookkeeping, controllership, CFO level services for nonprofits. And we found that we're really able to help nonprofits spend their money on programs versus overhead. And we're well aware of the challenges that nonprofits face with unrestricted funding and availability of unrestricted funding. And a lot of times that those dollars go to paying a bookkeeper and a controller and a CFO, and it ends up being really, really expensive. And we found that it's just not necessary for most nonprofits. So we're able to kind of provide all of those services across our team, and we've been really able to make a difference in some nonprofits that we've worked with, kind of helping them get their reporting in order, and merging the management reporting and the program reporting together and get their cash flow under control. So we've been able to fill in the gap for a lot of nonprofits.
So instead of hiring a full-time accountant, also working with a controller or having another firm work, they can come to you. And you have 15 years of experience. I love your story. I've gotten to know you over the last couple of months. Your story, you worked in a public accounting firm that got to clean up huge messes. Folks, she's not going to brag about it, but she is a highly capable certified public accountant, and you've built a team. Why don't you talk a little bit about the team? Talk to us a little bit about your background too over the last 15 years, and just help people get a feel for that.
Yep. So I'm a CPA. I had 15 years of experience in large public accounting firms. I spent 10 years as an auditor with a large regional firm, and we did a lot of nonprofit work there. We did a lot of schools. My dad actually owns his own accounting firm, and he audits almost strictly nonprofits. He does schools and government work. So I was kind of raised in the nonprofit accounting world. But yeah, I worked for a large regional firm there doing audit work and really learning how businesses work. And after that, I did some work in other public accounting firms providing outsourced accounting services, and then recently branched off into my own. And yeah, we've quickly been able to build a team. And what's good about having the team behind me is that we're able to provide that range of services. So if it's just month-end bookkeeping you need, we have awesome bookkeepers, and that's still going to be reviewed by a CPA. It's still going to be accurate, even if it's super simple. We can provide that. But then we're also able to act as a CFO for your company. One of our large nonprofit clients, I'm the CFO. I set up their retirement plan. I run their board meetings. So we're able to provide a wide range of services because we have really high quality staff.
What are some of the types of nonprofits that you've seen out there that are good fits for you guys to help?
So some of the ones that we have now, we have a large one, and they're good with me saying their name, and I will plug them because I think they're amazing. Global Response Medicine. They provide emergency medical services to areas that really have a critical need. So we just wrapped up a huge project in Ukraine and Iraq. We were in Iraq, we were in Mexico for a while, and now we are trying to get into Gaza to help provide humanitarian relief there. But yeah, so we kind of have a wide variety of nonprofits that we help out. We had some that we happen to do a lot of medical, but I don't know how we got into that niche specifically, but provide phlebotomy services to low-income people. We have some that we are doing that provide low-income housing assistance. We have another one that provides surf training to, surfing training to underserved communities. So yeah, we feel like we can kind of help out in all areas. We have a home and school association. So yeah, we have a wide variety.
I'm going to throw you a curveball here.
No.
What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see nonprofits do that gets them in a pickle? And where do you find them, or what are some of the problems that you find nonprofits are in that you have to kind of bail them out and catch them up and whatnot?
That's actually a pretty easy question, because it far and away the biggest issue is managing and kind of merging together their management reporting and their grant reporting, or their donor reporting. So a lot of times what happens is they get confused about whether they should set up their QuickBooks using like a specific grantee's, chart of accounts or something like that, versus, a management report, which like an accountant or your board would want to see. Like they want to know, what's your income, what are your expenses, what do you owe, what are you owed, but they'll get confused and start tracking it like on the same, like for a specific grant. And a lot of times what happens in non-for-profits is you need to be able to report to your grantor, this is what I spent your money on. But if you're not familiar with or not good at or don't have the time to set it up right in QuickBooks, it can get off the rails like immediately. So we had an instance where back in like 2022, they just did not keep records for a very, very large grant. It was like 80% of their of their revenue for the year. And the grantor was like, well, you got to give us your money. Well, you got to give us the money back then. So we went back and we cleaned up an entire year of records and made sure that we were assigning every transaction to the right program, to the right category, whether it's like a program or an admin or a fundraising expense. And now we're able to run those reports like every single week or every single day if we wanted to. We're able to run a report that tells you this is what we spent on this exact program, and then even deeper, like this is what we spent on this project within this program. So we're able to clean those up really well just by identifying that as a need. And I've seen like that's by far the most common issue with nonprofits.
How about when it comes to their donors? Are there weird things that pop up that they struggle with in terms of, whether it's sending out letters, or is there anything there that you guys are able to help bring clarity with, or maybe a different problem that might rise up?
Yeah, and a lot of times what happens is the donor will have stipulations on what the funds can be used for, so they're restricted for a specific purpose. So they require really specific tracking, or like timesheet tracking is becoming like a hot kind of issue in this space, because you're typically allowed to allocate some of your administrative costs. So like some of my costs could be allocated to a specific program, but that's unique to every donor and to every program. So we really are able to provide kind of like consulting around the reporting requirements for each program. And sometimes it's difficult to merge. You have two separate programs and two separate donors. It's difficult to kind of merge the requirements of the two. But using like some unique features in QuickBooks, especially the not-for-profit version, we're able to kind of provide guidance in that way.
What does a great month, quarter, and year look like for a nonprofit when you come in and you're just making life simple? What should good look like for these folks? Good
should look like if your donor calls you tomorrow and says, what have you spent of my money? That you're able to just give them a report that says what they spent without being like, oh, wait a minute, I have to spend 2 weeks figuring out what I spent of your money. So in my opinion, good is being able to deliver monthly financial statements to your board of directors and explain them. And when I started at this one large nonprofit that we have, the donors would say like, well, what does the next 6 months look like? What do we have incoming? What do we have outgoing? What do our programs look like? And at the time, the executive director was like, I have no idea. Like, I don't even know what this money in the bank is really for. So to me, like a good month end and year end is being able to consistently and cleanly give them a report of what our spending was, what impact our programs made because we're making the best use of the program dollars, and what the future looks like, what you're going to be spending your money on, and helping develop the strategic goals for the programs.
That's fantastic. How about in daily operations with payroll and hiring and firing or letting people go. Are there some things that you're able to bring to the table to help a nonprofit around that side of the business at all? Or?
Mm-hmm. So specifically kind of like daily and weekly, a lot of what we do is we're able to, using past experience and with other clients and things like that and other non-for-profits, we're able to put in place good procedures to keep things clean the way they are. So most of our clients, we implement a payable program, for example, and this has made the single biggest difference, I think, in non-for-profits specifically, because typically nonprofits donor requirements require, a lot of them will require an audit, or they'll require some sort of proof of what you've spent their money on. And what we find a lot of the times is it's just not organized. And it's like, well, where's the receipt for this? Like, oh, I have no idea. But if we're able to, number one, stay on top of it and set up processes to identify where we're missing items or where we may need to put in place like better controls, that's something that we're looking at constantly. And then, when we implement those payable programs, everything's in one place. So your vendor W-9s are there, your invoices are there, your clear approval process is there. You can tie your payment exactly to your invoice, and so your proof of funds is there. So simple things like that, like implementing those, but we're managing the process every week. Like, we're seeing the bills come in, we're coding them to the right programs, we're attaching the appropriate receipts, we're getting the W-9s. Quarterly, we're looking to see, are we missing any W-9s? Things like that are a big help to our clients. And then in terms of kind of like payroll and staffing and hiring and firing, one success that we've had recently with one of our larger clients is that we are able to free up some administrative funds, some unrestricted funds, to bring on like a full-time fundraiser. And a year ago, that just would not have been possible because they had no idea if they could afford it or not. So in terms of helping with staffing, we're typically able to help them find the funds, or at least organize them enough to know whether or not they have the funds to hire. Or, are we overstaffed? Are we spending too much money on overhead? Those are the things that we're able to identify.
What do you find what does the process look like, when you get started with a nonprofit and into, the first month, the first quarter, the first year? Talk to us about what somebody should expect if they were to come to you just immediately, whether they're embarrassed about where they're currently at. How do they do this if they've got staff or maybe another accounting firm they don't want to offend or how do you navigate those waters?
Yeah, it can be tricky, and it depends on what kind of staff they have and how open they are to change. We've come in where sometimes there's a bookkeeping staff or an accounting staff of some sort that they will like fully admit they're not doing a good job, but they're like, well, like, let's just see how it goes, like work with them, and we really try to fill in the gaps wherever our client needs us to. Typically it is easier if we're able to provide most of the staffing, just because we have like a way that we are used to working together, and my team works really well together. So we're able to, and we have like internal programs that we use to communicate with each other and things like that. So it's always a little bit easier when we're able to provide most or all of the staffing. But that said, we definitely are able to like play well with others and kind of fill in and provide suggestions and provide, relief in specific areas if that's what's needed. But generally when somebody first comes on, there's always some level of cleanup or catch up. So we'll do, an initial review of how things look right now. And then it really just depends on our client's needs. So we kind of listen, have a conversation and listen to what they're saying and where their pain points are. And, if they're like, I just had a new non-for-profit client come on and she was like, I need a budget like immediately. So our first priority was, getting her caught up so that we could see what she's spending her money on, because we need that information to develop a budget that's, accurate and usable. So that piece kind of really just depends on our client's needs and kind of what role they want us to fill, but also what their highest priorities are.
It sounds like you're bringing a lot of organizational leadership and direction, so that if a nonprofit does have an administrative staff there to help with accounting, everything that you just mentioned is really this high level of excellence when it comes to operations, SOPs, a lot of this CFO stuff. Where was it that you developed this? I mean, I know interacting with you, you've got the capabilities of every kind of typical public accountant, but help us understand where you've developed this competency in the nonprofit realm.
Yeah, and I think this specifically is very helpful to nonprofits, but kind of applies to all of the businesses and all of the industries that we work with. And I think a lot of it just came from being trained as an auditor, because as an auditor, if you're preparing financial statements or working on an audit, it's so specific. Exactly everything you need to do. If you're auditing cash, these are the steps that you need. These are the questions that you need to ask. So we've tried to replicate that for a non-audit setting. You know, some of our clients get audits, but the majority of them don't. But we're still kind of able to apply that process. And even when I go in and do like a cleanup, I immediately like put my auditor hat on and do it exactly the same way I would as if I was doing an audit. So I think it's just like my background that I like processes and I like consistency. And once we like identify a problem and put in a solution, what's really good is that if you have staff and there is turnover, you know, internally in your staff, or if we have staff turnover on our end, whoever comes in next is immediately able to pick it up, because we followed the same process every week for the last year. We followed the same month-end process every month for the last year. And people know then what to expect from us. You know, they know exactly what their financial statements are going to look like. They know we are going to request that they fill out this spreadsheet on the 12th of every month. And it provides, I think, like a level of comfort that they know exactly what they're getting from us. And then they also understand how everything's working because they see it kind of laid out nicely.
So they get the confidence and peace of mind that things are done right. They have the capacity free up, or the bandwidth get freed up, because you're able to come in and make these decisions. Decision making and implementation and direction can really swamp a leader or a leadership team. So you're able to do that. Not only are you doing those things, but you're able to kind of bring this stack of services that would often live in different silos. And when you stack them together, there's an efficiency I know we've talked about, where when you do it all together, you can do it better. And then the last thing is you're probably saving these organizations a ton of money. They don't have to hire as many administrative staff. They start doing the math on just an in-house bookkeeper that maybe kind of knows how to do it. You guys are a full solution that really nails it. But I mean, how should people be thinking about this as they consider, booking a consultation with you, and what other encouragement would you have for them to know that this might work for them and be a good solution?
Sure. So just as a brief example, for our largest nonprofit client, they pay us about $36,000 a year. They were paying one of their previous CFOs $120,000 a year, and their books were like a wreck. They were completely unusable. So I think when you're talking about that level of savings for a nonprofit, it almost becomes a no-brainer right away. Like you can't even hire a bookkeeper for that much money. And we're able to provide all of those levels of service. And I have not encountered a nonprofit yet that would not benefit from outsourcing their accounting. Just the typical size of a lot of nonprofits and kind of the routineness of their accounting, right? Like they need the same reports every month. Typically they're not getting a new donor with new donor requirements every single week. They're larger, and we can consistently set up systems in place for them to kind of get that information quickly and efficiently. But I have not yet found a non-for-profit where an outsourcing model would be more expensive or less efficient than an in-house staff.
That's great. So if they want to get in touch with you, how do they do it? What does that look like? What is the phone call or the consultation on your calendar? What does that look like for them?
Yeah, so on my website, they can just kind of put a little blurb in there about what they're looking for. And then, our first consultation will really just be like talking about what their needs are, what their highest priorities are, what their problems are, what their mission is, because we want to make sure that we align with their mission. That's really important to us. So that'll be the first conversation, basically like talking about how we can help and where we can fit their needs.
That's great. Thank you so much, Christina. You guys do a great job.